Hey everyone, and thank you for joining us. Right now we are going to give you a quick 5 to 7 minute tutorial on how to do one of the most mysterious poses in a yoga class, and that is Chaturanga Dandasana or Yogi push-up. So let's start off by explaining exactly what Chaturanga is and what Chaturanga is not. So let's begin or you can just watch, but I'll have my friend Harold here come to downward facing dog. Good. So if you're doing this tutorial and you're going to start practicing, of course, I want you to warm up a little bit. So maybe take some time in child's pose, take a couple of cat-cows, maybe even do a few sit-ups or crunches or just something to warm your body up, get the heart rate up a little bit. But once you come into downward facing dog, I'll have Harold shift into high plank. Having a good understanding and a good alignment in high plank is really crucial for mastering Chaturanga. So from high plank, you move into Chaturanga. So you bend both elbows in, hug them back, and lower down and hold. That is what Chaturanga Dandasana is. It's an actual pose. It's not a series of movements. So you can just lower your knees and then take a little rest here. You'll notice that when he was in Chaturanga, his legs were straight. He had the balls of his feet on the mat. And like I said, the elbows were hugged in towards the rib cage and pointing backwards. So very important concepts when you're dealing with Chaturanga. So let's show you how to get there. A good way to start is on your knees. So if you want to come to a modified push-up position, so with your knees on the mat, okay? So modified push-up or modified plank. Notice that his hips are not lifted. He's got a nice slope there between the shoulders and the knees. And notice that his shoulders are over the wrists. It's really important to think about the alignment, particularly of your upper body in Chaturanga Dandasana. When you get into the pose, you want your elbows to stack directly over the wrists, and the shoulders are going to go forward. If you're coming from a normal push-up and you just lower, so go ahead and just lower, your elbows are going to go back behind your wrist. So see how his elbows are shooting back behind his wrist? We don't want that. So if you come back to the modified plank, a good little tip is to shift your weight forward. So shift your shoulders forward about 1 or 2 inches. See that shift? Good. And then lower. And then you're going to have your elbows directly or pretty close to stacked over your wrist. So again, you can just rest here or come back to take a look at a little bit more. Okay. When you're going into a modified Chaturanga, a little trick that I like to think of is you'll feel the skin shift on your kneecaps. So there you go. When you shift forward, feel that little skin shift, lower, look forward. So past the top of your mat. That's your baby Chaturanga, and then you can lower your hips all the way down to the mat. That's a great way to modify. Here's a little drill you can do if you're working on this modified Chaturanga. So come to child's pose. What we'll do here is we'll come up through tabletop, lift into modified plank or Chaturanga, and then, or modified plank or modified push-up, lower into Chaturanga, and then we'll allow our chest to come all the way down to the floor. While we're doing this, our knees are on the ground the whole time, so you're definitely strengthening your upper body, but you still have the comfort of having your knees on the ground. And this is something that can be done about 3 to 5 times just to build up strength. So that's what we'll do. We'll do this 3 times. So from child's pose, lift up into your modified plank. So knees are on the ground. And then shift forward and then lower. Good. Elbows over wrists. And then lower all the way down to your belly. And then from here, press back up through modified plank. And then bring your hips to your heels for child's pose. Let's do this 2 more times. So inhale from child's pose, lift into modified plank, shift forward, lower, hold, lower the chest and belly all the way down. Press back up through modified plank, trying not to snake your way up, and then back to child's pose. 1 more time. Inhale, modified plank, shift forward, look forward, lower, elbows over wrist, hold that 90-degree angle, perfect, lower all the way down, and shift back into child's pose. So that movement, I would call that a modified chaturanga, and that's something you can do in any single or every yoga class that you do. You can always lower your knees and take chaturanga that way. If you want to work on full chaturanga, you've been doing the modified one a while and you're starting to feel strong, let's go over a little bit more what that shape will look like. So Harold, if you will grab those 2 blocks for me, please. Blocks can be helpful. They may be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's helpful just to learn what the shape will look like. So bring those blocks, stack them on the lowest level, one on top of each other, and stack like one on top. There you go, perfect. And so you're going to bring those blocks right underneath, or about on your sternum, okay? So again, it may be a little uncomfortable, but we're just going for the shape. So come to your high plank. Okay, notice that his heels are lifted, shoulders are over the elbows and are over the wrist. So the first step is to shift the shoulders forward, just like we did when we were on the knees. Notice how he comes to the very tops of his toes. That's perfect. Now from here, lower the chest down, all the way down to the yoga blocks, and hold here. So you see that nice, almost perfect 90-degree angle between his shoulder, elbow, and wrist. That's what we're going for every time we do a chaturanga. Okay? Depending on the shape of your body, you may notice that your booty lifts a little bit up in the air. That's okay as long as you're not arching your back. And when you come into chaturanga, yes, you are very much on the tip of your toes. Okay? So that's the shape we're going to. If you want to lower your knees and just move the blocks and come back to a high plank, we'll do that without the blocks to show everyone what it looks like. Okay, so high plank. Same thing, looking forward just past the top of your mat, shift the shoulders forward, come to the tippy toes and lower, good, hold. That's your chaturanga. And then you can lower the knees, lower the chest, and just rest. All right, so that is how you do a chaturanga push-up. We'll come to child's pose. The last couple minutes we'll spend in the transition from chaturanga to upward facing dog, this is a place where a lot of people run into trouble as well. When you're moving from chaturanga to upward facing dog, it's important to realize that your belly and chest and your thighs and knees never touch the ground. So you're essentially moving from that position where you're hovering, and then you're using your arm strength to press yourself back up into a back bend. So let's come to high plank. We'll move through everything just so you start to really remember what your body should be doing as you go through this pose. Remember that this is high plank. We shift forward and lower. This is chaturanga. Now from here, continue to press forward. So press the palms of the hands into the mat and reach up through the chest. Roll over the tops of the feet and come into upward facing dog. Okay? So his thighs, knees, hips, everything's lifted away from the mat. And then you can lift the hips, roll over the tops of the feet, and return to downward facing dog. Okay, let's do that one more time. So from downward facing dog, inhale to high plank. Shift the shoulders forward, look forward, lower with control, hold, chaturanga. Inhale into upward facing dog. Exhale into downward facing dog. All right, and lower your knees. And rest. And so that is a quick tutorial on how to do Chatarunga Dandasana or Yogi push-up. There are several other ways you can modify this, but this gives you a basic rundown. If you have any questions, please come to class or shoot us an email and we'll be happy to answer them.